NEOM's Line City promised a futuristic paradise with flying taxis, high-speed trains, artificial night skies, and many others. A $500 billion dream that many believed could come true. But 7 years later, all we got was scaled-back plans, financial cover-ups, displaced tribes, and thousands of dead. Is this really progress, or a scam dressed up as paradise? NEOM's Line City burst onto the scene in 2017, a brainchild of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Originally, it was conceptualized as a 170-kilometer-long mirror towers slicing through the desert with two gigantic skyscrapers 500 meters tall, housing 9 million people. No roads, just high-speed trains zipping you end-to-end in 20 minutes. Flying taxis fly you above pristine landscapes, while AI runs everything: your home, your job, even an artificial moon lighting up the night. On top of that, they promised a carbon-neutral Eden powered by renewable energy. A $500 billion beacon of innovation funded by Saudi oil and global investors. The line wasn't just a city, it was a revolution. A place where technology and nature danced together, where millions could thrive in harmony, with jobs for all, a legacy for the ages. Well, that was the vision 7 years ago. By 2024, the plans shrunk. Now just 2.4 kilometers, barely 300,000 people expected by 2030, with costs ballooning from $500 billion to almost $9 trillion. That is 25 times Saudi's annual budget. But that's not the worst part. Over 20% of Saudi citizens, roughly 7 million, live in poverty, scraping by on less than $530 a month. Unemployment is stuck at 12%. The kingdom leans heavy on oil handouts, yet 60% of Saudis rely on subsidies to eat. NEOM promised jobs for the masses, with over 1.5 million roles created by 2030. But that was for 9 million people living in the city. Now only 300,000 residents are now projected, so how many jobs will there be when everything is completed? As always, the poor get promises, the powerful get profits. NEOM is nothing more than a playground for the rich, a tax haven for the global elites, while the locals starve. And it gets worse. Millions of foreigners are lured in from Asia and Africa with promises of work. Leaked reports estimated 21,000 migrant workers have died since construction began. Heat stroke, exhaustion, unsafe conditions. As usual, Saudi government denies it. But a lot of credible leaks describe slavery-like treatment for these foreigners. Passports confiscated, wages withheld, 16-hour shifts in 48 degrees Celsius heat. Saudi Arabia's private sector leans heavily on migrant workers, over 80% of it. Why? Because they're far cheaper. A migrant worker might earn as little as $186 monthly, while Saudi law mandates a minimum wage of $1,000 for citizens in the private sector. NEOM's $9 trillion price tag demands cost-cutting, and importing labor avoids unions, benefits, or fair wages. A ruthless yet efficient step. NEOM's ambition requires a massive expendable workforce fast. Migrants from India, Bangladesh, Nepal fill the gap with 6 million people already there. Tight deadlines amplify the need for a workforce that won't hesitate at unrealistic demands. At the end of the day, these people aren't partners in progress. They are disposable. While Saudi elites profit and consultants like McKinsey cash in 130 million checks yearly, migrants bear the cost. The awful truth: employing locals with rights and recourse would disrupt the machine. With all the problems we discussed so far, the question of feasibility is still a big contentious topic. Even though the goal of 170 kilometers went down to a stub, 2.4 kilometers still sounds ridiculous. NEOM's 500-meter height sounds impressive until you dissect it. The Taipei 101 at 508 meters uses an adjusted mass damper to counter its sway. The line spanning kilometers would need dozens, jacking up cost and complexity. The Taipei 101 cost $1.8 billion in 2004, built in a stable economy. NEOM's line, officially $500 billion, now ballooning to $9 trillion. For 2.4 kilometers, that is $3.7 trillion per kilometer. Difference is, desert logistics. If in 7 years the cost went up almost 18 times and the length was cut down by 99%, do I need to say more? Population density is another factor that screams scam. NEOM's original 9 million residents across 34 square kilometers would have a population density of 260,000 per square kilometer. Just to give you an idea, that is 6 times Manila's 44,000, the world's densest city. Scaled to 2.4 kilometers, which is now half a square kilometer, 300,000 people expected. That number jumps to 625,000. It just defies sanity. And forget about the 5-minute city with high-speed trains. Japan's Shinkansen hits 320 kilometers an hour at best, but slows down for stations. The 2.4 kilometer stub needs stops every 800 meters. There is no way it will reach 510 kilometers an hour. And that's not all. A single derailment or power glitch cripples the whole city. No roads, no backups. The line's train fantasy is a single point of failure dressed up as progress. It basically billions of dollars being burned for unproven tech in a desert stove. Why stove? Because in a desert with no rivers, NEOM leans on desalination, promising zero-waste plants powered by renewables. Here's the problem though. Saudi's existing plants guzzle fossil fuels, and green desalination is unproven at this scale. But ventilation is worse. 500-meter height mirrored walls and no cross breeze traps heat and stale air. Cooling and oxygen for millions demands mega systems, sucking more power than the sun can give, which, let's just call it what it is, an unsustainable, suffocating sham. And maintaining it, even worse. The line's mirrored facade is a maintenance black hole, glass cleaning in 48 degrees Celsius heat with sandstorms scoured daily. The only thing that could do that on a reasonable time frame are robotic armies, which would cost billions yearly. I mean, the problems are just self-evident to the point that building a civilization on Mars is far more feasible. Anyone who still thinks this project is going to happen is just retarded.